We're going to London in 1851. It's one of the most beautiful games in chess history, and it's the reason why so many people enjoy the game. Adolf Anderssen and Lionel Kieseritzky. E4, E5, F4, the most popular opening at the time, the King's Gambit. Kieseritzky continues the game with E takes F4, and we see the bishop C4 move from Anderssen. Now Queen H4, King F1. Yes, at a glance it appears to be contradictory, because the whites willingly agree to have their right to castling disrupted. But there's a very strong idea behind it. He's going to want to develop his knight with a tempo in a minute. Kieseritzky continued with a gambit against the latest King F1 move, with the B5 move. Bishop takes B5. Here's how we can explain the basic ideas of this pawn sacrifice made by the blacks. First of all, he managed to deflect his opponent's bishop in C4 from the cross that puts pressure on his own king. And he may be able to develop his bishop quickly from square B7 in the future. Now against bishop takes B5, Kieseritzky continues to develop with knight F6, and we see the knight F3 move from Anderssen. Here, Kieseritzky's response is queen H6. Of course, we've discussed the King's Gambit in a number of games, and it's worth recalling briefly. The basic idea behind the white's King's Gambit is that if he can gain an advantage in development in the center by sacrificing his pawn, and then retake this F4 pawn, he will have strong attack opportunities from the F vertical this time as well, which blacks usually try to block and complicate. We can see that the queen H6 move is reasonable when we look at it, because it is a move that strongly defends the F4 pawn. But the most critical question is the queen in the right location in the board's corner? In square H6? Let's see. Now Anderssen has continued to defend the pawn with D3 move, and Kieseritzky has played H5. Yes, in terms of the opening principles, this is an inconvenient move, because the blacks haven't completed their development and made a new move with a played piece. But of course, Kieseritzky has a very serious threat. The threat is to win the exchange with knight G3, taking into account the H vertical's precision. Anderssen defends the threat with knight H4 by closing the H vertical against the knight H5 move. And now queen G5. This move comes with a double threat. Anderssen responded with knight F5 move. In F5, the white knight now poses a serious threat. It's on the opponent's side. This is one of the most critical points in the game. Here, Kieseritzky continued with C6 move. However, further analysis revealed that the blacks' G6 move could have been more effective in this situation. Of course, this move isn't going to win you any pieces just yet. Although the queen has also examined the opposing bishop, there is an important intermediate move here, such as the H4, that can be used to counter the G6 move. The function of this move is the ability to deflect from the fifth horizontal where the queen is looking at the bishop. Nonetheless, the G6 move would have made this dangerous knight uncomfortable. That would be better. Let's get back in the game. Here, Kieseritzky's response to knight F5 is C6. And here, Adolf Anderssen didn't take his bishop back. He continued with the G4 move. he draws attention to the opposing knight's position in the corner. Kieseritzky does not want to take the opposing bishop because his opponent will take the knight from h5 and open the g vertical. That's why the blacks played f6. Everything appears to be fine with blacks, because taking the opposing bishop is a significant threat and, more importantly, he wants to exchange the queens with queen takes g4 move. Guys, keep in mind that if you are ahead in development and you are the one who is attacking, you should definitely keep the queen on the board. Anderssen sees that, and he continues with rook g1 move. It's a piece sacrifice. Kieseritzky said, "Okay, I'll take that bishop. C takes b5. However, after h4, queen g6, h5, and queen g5. The whites have a strong counterattack against the piece he sacrificed. Now the blacks could suddenly lose the queen on the king's side. He needs to be very careful. With the queen f3 move, Anderssen exposes the bishop takes f4 threat, and of course, he'll want to take the queen. The blacks played knight g8 move against that threat. Yes, this move is wrong, but finding the correct move for the blacks in this position is extremely difficult. Of course, the purpose of knight g8 move is to clear the f6 square for the queen. However, it also means that the blacks return his knight, his only minor piece, to the starting square. Guys, if we hadn't seen the moves at the start of the game, it looks like the blacks have made no developmental moves and appear to have only played the queen since the start of the game. On top of that, he created weaknesses with several pawn moves. Now against knight g8, Anderssen continues to develop with tempo. Bishop takes f4, queen f6, and knight c3. And Kieseritzky said, "I need to develop now, because my opponent is almost completed his development," and he continued with bishop c5 move. He also said, "At least let me do it with a significant threat by demanding the opposing bishop." But do you think Anderssen cares about that? No. Knight d5. Now the queen is in demand. Queen takes b2. Yes, the blacks have something as well. Both rooks are in demand. But here we see Adolf Anderssen's bishop d6 move, which produced one of the most beautiful combinations in chess history. It's really a difficult move to find. The purpose of this move is to limit the moves available to the opposing king as much as possible. Now against bishop d6, we are without a doubt in the most crucial phase of the game. Before we get to Kieseritzky's move, let's try to find the best way forward for the blacks. First and foremost, blacks could continue with the queen takes a1 move with the king's tempo, and when the king e2 move is made, blacks will still have to make a critical decision, because he can take the rook in both ways. But if the queen takes g1 move is made, the g7 pawn will be hanging this time, potentially giving the whites a checkmate attack. We're going to see that in the game anyway. If the bishop takes g1 move is made, the whites could win in a similar way to the one in the game. So what's the right move for the blacks here? Yes, queen b2. While taking the rook in g1 poses no threat to the whites, the queen b2 move, while protecting the g7 pawn once more, also poses a threat to the opponent's weaker king with the queen takes c2 move. Of course, the bishop in c5 is not left hanging at this point, because the blacks could have taken the bishop after the queen takes c2 and the bishop takes c5. But, to be honest, it's difficult to predict what will happen from here on out. It's a very complicated situation. Even the computer has the ability to change its mind in an instant. Let's return to the game. Kieseritzky played the game-losing bishop takes g1 move against the most recent bishop d6 move, and Anderssen is now continuing with the e5 move. The goal of this move is to sever the queen's ties to the g7. The whites have already given a bishop sacrifice and the rook, and now they hand over the other rook. Queen takes a1, but after king e2, neither the queen nor the bishop can harmoniously pose a threat to the opposing king. And here Kieseritzky continued with a6, but perhaps the f6 move that came to mind would not have been enough to save the blacks. With the idea of, let me open the f7 square for the king, because that means the king is aligned with the queen, and the black king's life would have been short. Here Kieseritzky played knight a6 against king e2. Perhaps he's attempting to eliminate the knight c7 ideas. However, knight takes g7 and now queen f6 against king d8, a perfect queen sacrifice. After knight takes f6, Anderssen won the game by using the bishop e7 move to checkmate. It's flawless, as if it were a work of art. The whites were down one bishop and two rooks, but two knights and one bishop were enough to complete the mate. A fantastic game. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like, leave a comment, and subscribe to this channel, and click on the bell icon to stay updated with my new videos. Hope to see you in the next videos. Take care.